Welcome to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, where you can listen to your favorite performers talk about their career, how they got started, and everything in between. Make sure to follow me at Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha on Instagram and also my main Broadway account at Broadway_corner for updates on new episodes. Hope you enjoy! Hi everyone, welcome back to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. I am so happy you are here. And today we are talking to one of the stars of the Broadway show, K-pop. And he is 1/8 of Faye and can belt pretty much the highest notes I've ever heard on a Broadway stage. It's Abraham Lim.
Hi, Ashley. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. All things considered, I'm good. I am pretty busy at the moment with lots of different things, as you know, because I've kept you waiting on this interview for forever. But yeah, I'm really good. I have my days and I have my moments, but they're just that, moments, and they pass. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here and just be talking about a show that I know I love so much and I know you obviously adore. And anyways, some
Yeah.
background about Abraham. Abraham was born in Seoul, raised in New York, and previously a resident of Los Angeles, but now he obviously lives in New York. He was a political science and international studies double major who was set to go to law school, but he decided to focus on the performing arts instead. Abraham made his Broadway debut in K-pop as Jake, and prior to K-pop, he appeared in television and film projects such as The Boys and Clickbait. He was also on the Glee Project, where he was the first Asian American to be cast in the series. So, yay!
Yeah. That was so good. I could tell where you got them from, though. I could tell where you got all the little chunks of information from.
I hope they're all accurate and not some like yeah.
They're all accurate. They're all accurate. They're all accurate. They're all very good. And I was like, oh God, what credits is she gonna bring up? But then you brought up the good ones. So.
Just the really, really important ones. I mean, Abraham, it's so nice to see you again. The last time I saw you, I think maybe it was right after the show for closing, I think. Because I saw you
I
that
think,
night before and then in the line waiting. And then I think after I was like, I made it. And then it was like a moment. But
yeah, I was so happy that you made it because I remember you had told me that you flew out and it was, you flew out on a red eye. And I was just like, oh my God, I really hope she gets it because that line, I can't believe that you guys were there since like 6 in the morning. It's wild to
yeah.
me. And I was humbled and moved by that too, because, you know, that people wanted to show up for us,
Mhm.
and the show in such a way was just very moving. So yeah, thank you for standing on that line, and I'm glad you got in.
Yeah, me
I
too.
tried to put my magic inside. I was like, oh, like, can you, but I don't have much power as an actor, but contrary to what people might think.
I know it's always so funny how those things work. But yeah, I am also very happy that I made it as well. And I was able to see the closing performance of K-pop, which it was my second time seeing it because I'd seen it right before, the night before. And so I was just so unbelievably happy to be in that room. It was like a sigh of relief. And also I was super cold, so it was like a sigh of relief also to my body and being able to warm up in a nice theater.
It was really cold. That's why I was like, I cannot believe people have been out there since 6 p.m. It's not.
Yeah, but before we jump into all the questions, like I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you've done as Abraham and being so supportive of just the show K-pop and just for Ain't No Mo and every other BIPOC story that's currently on Broadway or just out there. You've been such a huge inspiration to me, just trying to, get into this crazy industry and you advocate for not only just the underrepresented on Broadway, not for just yourself, but for everyone else around you. And I think sometimes people don't do that because, you think, okay, the things that affect me, I'm going to fight for that, but you really fight for everyone. And so we all deserve to be represented and seen. So just thank you, Abraham. Thank you so much.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously, when things affect you, or, the things that there are issues pertaining to people that look like you, I think it's very easy to be, to become an activist in varying degrees with regards to your own community. But I think that there's a lot of empathy missing from a lot of activism that I see, particularly on social media. And it really does break my heart because, for for one underrepresented community, there are so many others. And, what happened to K-pop isn't unique to K-pop. It's, yes, we were the first of its kind on Broadway. But that being said, there are a lot of other shows. I just saw, God, I can't remember the name of the show, but like Audra McDonald had a show. And then
Ohio State
Broadway,
Murders. Is that one?
Ohio State, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
closed so quickly.
Hmm.
Ain't no most close so quickly, and you've got to kind of wonder what, the underlying issues are. So yeah, I'm happy to do it. And thanks for saying that. That really means a lot to me. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you've just been such like a bright light, I think, in our community and for to so many other people. And so just getting to talk to you about all this kind of stuff is just really cool because I know we believe in it just I believe in it just as much as you do and just trying to change the industry because we can't keep doing the things that we're doing all the time because it seems like
Right.
it's not always working for some specific things. And so yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's an understatement, but yeah, I mean it's because I think this conversation has been had
Hmm.
within the theater world, and every few months there's this conversation about like, oh, why are, certain stories being underserved? Why are they not being marketed properly? Why aren't they finding their audience? We have this conversation with different show titles every few months. And there has to be a point where we have to see the thread that goes through all these shows, and we actually address that. So how do we, talk to the marketing companies? How do we deal with them and see how they can market their shows properly? That's not a Funny Girl starring Leah Michelle. That's not a Music Man starring Hugh Jackman, right? And so I think that's a really good conversation, and I think that's a conversation that needs to be continued and to be had with like the proper parties and through the proper channels. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And since you mentioned Leah Michelle, I have one question. Just about
right.
like since I am a major Gleek, I have watched the show like I don't even know how many
Are
times.
you really?
Yes, I am. I
Oh,
actually
I'm
have a
so
Cheerios
sorry.
outfit, like an actual Cheerios costume that I bought for like Halloween one year. And so
Oh
yes,
God.
I'm a major Gleek. And so I do have to ask, first of all, how was your experience on the Glee Project, being the first Asian American on the series, and just how was that experience? Because it's such a unique thing that most people probably don't know what that would be like at all.
What's funny is that when I started doing K-pop, and I talked to my castmates in a way that like no one else will understand what we're going through right now, and no one else will understand what we're experiencing and going on this journey together. I feel the same way with regards to the Glee Project. It was such a unique experience in that we were isolated. We were in this home, which is really a pseudo set, and we had, I think, per week 10 minutes of conversation, phone conversation per week, and you could split it amongst people. So I would call my mom, my sister, my best friend. So it was
Mhm.
like 4, 3, 3. We had no exposure to the outside world, no social media, no television, no nothing, and we were pretty much on camera. I think like anywhere from like 12 to 16 hours a day, and for 6 days a week.
Oh my God.
So it was a way, it was actually really, I'm not gonna lie, it was actually very traumatic, as particularly as an Asian American on the show, in that I think that in this country, growing up as a child of immigrants, you kind of have this aspiration of whiteness being synonymous with excellence.
Mhm.
You're kind of socialized that in this country without even knowing, right? And so when you see me first on the show, I have like red hair, I have hazel contacts, I have a piercing. I try to do everything to almost enhance my the spark that I already innately had, but I was trying to externalize it in a way because I didn't feel confident enough in my own my physical Asianness that I would pop out on a show like that, right?
Yeah.
And so in some ways it was incredibly traumatizing, but that being said, I got to do what I loved every single day. I learned so much. I never acted prior to the Glee Project, not even in a single school play. And then I started, acting, which is
Yeah.
how I got into acting, and I fell in love with it. And then for that, I'll be eternally grateful. And some of my closest friends are from that show, like Lily Mae Harrington, and Ali Stroker just had a baby, and yeah, some of my close friends are from that show. So I'm just really grateful for that experience overall, despite the mixed bag that it was.
Yeah, just like taking the good parts of it that you do remember and still have with you today. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even the quote unquote negative parts, it's important to take those things with you, not let them bog you down, but really teach you important lessons, and to not forget them, and to even honor those experiences too. I don't regret anything, and I'm so thankful that I got to be in the show. Who can say, like, even before properly starting an acting career, that they performed in front of Ryan Murphy several times,
Yeah.
right? Like that's insane. Like Ryan Murphy's, like, he just won the like a special award at the Golden Globes, and I got to perform for the man like 3 4 times. So
Mhm.
5 times, yeah. I don't know,
A
but
big
yeah.
accomplishment. Super big
Yeah,
accomplishment. And
yeah.
also, I think I need to say that I think this Broadway, like recent Broadway season has been very, very full of glee because there's Darren Criss in American Buffalo, and then Leah Michelle in Glee, and then you in K-pop, and then Alex Newell now going to be in Shucked. So I'm like, okay, there's a lot of glee on Broadway right now.
Yeah, it's, if you think about it, when people talk about what, and this is no shade to these other shows, but when you talk about The Voice or American Idol for a very, very long time, this conversation regarding, like, oh, they haven't produced like viable careers and viable stars, within the business. I look at Glee Project and I'm like, like, Alex Newell is killing it on Broadway. We have a Tony Award winner in Ali Stroker.
Yes, Allie.
We and she's like killing it. She's like on Netflix right now. She's just killing it in every medium. You know, and yeah, did you know that Lizzo auditioned to be on Glee Project? I didn't know this until like
My
maybe a few
God.
years back. But she auditioned to be on Glee Project. And funny story is that, like, Circle in the Square Theater, which is where K-pop was at, Ali Stroker had done Oklahoma
Mhm,
in
yeah,
that
yeah.
theater. And Lindsay Pierce had done Wicked Next Door.
Yeah,
And Alex Newell had done Things on This Island in that theater as well. So it's just that little alleyway is just Glee Project excellence. And so
yeah.
I'm really proud of I am I remember thinking that when I first got to that theater, or even when I found out that we were at that theater, and I thought it was really, really special and a bit of a kismet. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you made all those connections because I know I did. And just
Yeah, it's
doing all
wild.
those
It's
things.
wild.
Yeah. And when I actually saw Lindsay in Mean Girls like a few weeks ago, and just like the Glee
Oh my
Project,
gosh. Oh my God. Was she not amazing?
yeah, she is incredible. I was telling everyone, I'm like, wow, just wow.
Lindsay's stunning. She's so incredible, and I'm so proud of her. Yeah. Alphaville was her dream role, and she finally got to do it, and now she's killing it as Janice, and just, yeah, she's doing such a great job. I'm really proud of her.
Yeah, and going on a different note, like, can you talk about your background and where you grew up? Like, what happened in, I guess, I don't know, in your childhood, where'd you go to school? Like, how did you discover theater as something, or not theater, but just wanting to perform and sing as something that you knew you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I grew up in New York. I grew up in Queens. But I think when I was younger, there was a lot that I was trying to escape from, I think, emotionally, and on a mental level, even as a child. And the moment that everyone else would be gone in my family, like my parents would be at work and my sister was gone, I would there were these little headsets that were for your phone, but you plug it into your phone, because I'm old. Der. But yeah, and you would like plug it in, and I would just like put that on, and I would start like dancing and singing in my living room by myself on my living room floor. And I had always loved music. I never thought about it as a viable career, but it was my dream. Like, I would literally imagine myself in like a Madison Square Garden type of theater, just performing in
Mhm.
front of tens of thousands of people. And I never acted. I was pretty much, I grew up in a household that really valued academia, and I'm sure you know what that feels like.
Yeah.
But as Asians in this country, as children of immigrants, we are taught to, our parents didn't have a choice,
Mhm.
and they want to give us choices. They want us to be better than the options that they had when they came into this country. And so, even though it doesn't feel like love, it really is. And but though at the time I didn't recognize that. And they really pushed me towards like becoming a businessman, a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist. And then I finally settled on law. And I studied and I never acted growing up again. And I never did a school play. And finally, when I had gotten into law school after double majoring in international studies, linguistics, and poli-sci, and minoring in Japanese studies,
Oh my gosh.
um, I kind of broke my mother's heart actually, and was like, I want to defer admissions to NYU Law. I
Mhm.
want to defer admissions for a year, and I want to give this a shot because I'm looking down at the road and I see a six-figure debt going into law school, doing something that I, at that point, really did not love. I knew I was good at, but I could be good at many things. But
Mhm.
that doesn't mean I necessarily want to do that for the rest of my life. And my mom gave me 1 year. She was like, okay. And she knew in her head that most people wouldn't get anything because statistically, you don't book anything in your first year. And particularly in music, it's way harder. It takes years and years. And I was a lot more fearless back then. So I was like, okay, and within, I think, 4 or 5 months, I booked the Glee Project. So
Mhm.
that's how it all got started.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, I think I've always believed when I was a child that, and I know this sounds really precocious, but when I was a child, I genuinely believed that I was meant for something um special. I
Mhm.
didn't know what that looked like necessarily,
Yeah.
but I knew it wasn't in like Bayside, Queens. And I knew it wasn't I wasn't going to be restricted to just what many may consider an average job, right? And that's not to downplay the importance of those jobs. It's just, to me, I felt like I had a voice inside of me and stories that I needed to tell. And it wasn't that even wanted to tell it. I felt like I needed to. Like there was this deep conviction inside of me, even as a child. And so I do think that it would have happened one way or another, but like to see how it's all kind of laid itself out in this special way, especially when you look at the trajectory of my career and then my journey throughout this business, I'm really grateful for it. I think I was very humbled and very grounded while still growing. Um, so yeah, I'm really thankful when I look back on it, actually. I haven't really thought about that in recent times. So
Yeah, everything
you're
always
making
happens. Everything always happens in the way, that it's meant to, and you talking about just knowing that you have something inside you, kind of like Mui is saying during her audition, like there's something that I know I have something to offer the world and to share stories that everyone can see themselves in as well. And just I know I think I know a little bit of what you mean about the whole academia thing because my parents are very supportive and never pushed me. It was always like my own
Oh, that's
anxiety pushing me.
amazing.
It was
Right.
just like my own stress and anxiety just being like, you have to be perfect. And not even my parents, which is weird and different, but it's obviously
Well,
really.
it's also this thing of growing up as like under the myth of being a privileged minority, right? There's this expectation upon us to be perfect, but also to be meek, but also to be this and that and that.
Yeah,
And we can't be all those things. And we don't have to be all those things. We're human beings.
yeah.
And this isn't the pain Olympics. I think we've all gone through things to be where we're at. And I think that the more imperfect and complex you are, and quite frankly, the more you overcome, it's those things that make you more interesting. And so don't adhere to any of that. Like, screw those voices. I mean,
Throw it out.
it took me a long time to so it took me a very long time to throw it out because LA, and I would say to anyone out there, LA is not the place to discover yourself. LA is a city where everyone's telling you who you are, who you should be, what you're not enough of. And if you do not have a firm grasp on who you are when you are in LA, you are going to sink and you are going to burn out. and in whatever way that looks like. That's not my hope for people. That's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it took me a really long time to start disregarding those voices. And now I only care about like the 1% of people in my life that I genuinely love and care about and respect wholly their opinions of me, because I know it comes from a place of love. But everyone else, it's like, unless it's outwardly disrespectful to, my
Yeah.
community, like certain people,
Certain
uh,
people.
I just disregard because it's like I know who I am and the people I love know who I am. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's amazing that you have such like a strong sense of self, because I know I'm still searching for it a little bit and just trying, because I'm still, like getting into college, and that's where you're supposed to change and
yeah.
supposed to find yourself, and just knowing that I'm gonna go on that journey, and hopefully it'll be a really nice one, and knowing that, I am enough mostly, like, even if I tell myself that I'm not, I need to remember that, that
And the truth is, Ashley, like you are enough, you are more than enough. And the truth is that the moment you stop learning about yourself and the moment you have figured out who you are, like as self-assured as I sound, like honestly, ask Patrick, ask ask Jewish Marcus, or ask men. Like I am nuts. Like there are some days where I'm just like, what am I doing? Oh. But I think the moment you feel like you have it all figured out is like, okay, then you've lived life.
Yeah.
I think growth happens when you're like, I don't have it all figured out. And I
Mhm.
think it's in that I have this sense of assurance, because it's like, okay, well, I don't have it all figured out, but this is who I am right now. And I accept that I will grow and evolve and change throughout the mistakes and the successes that I experience in my life, both of those things.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a forever journey. But you are more than enough in this moment, and you will be more than enough in the next. So just remember that, especially throughout college, like applications. I know how arduous that time is, and I know how discouraging it can be. And though I believe in your case, it'll be a lot more uplifting and exciting. But, don't worry about that. And just remember who you are. And you're, like you said earlier, like what's meant to happen, how it happens is how it's going to happen. Right. And
Yeah.
so there's joy and flowers to be picked from whatever situation. I genuinely believe that. So,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Like this is just it's such a nice time to just get to talk to you and get to talk to everyone like Patrick or Tim or, Kate or anyone else, and just getting to really to just talk to other people who kind of understand maybe what I'm going through specifically as a performer or as an Asian American. It's just been really, really nice getting to do that, even because in my life, I think I mostly just have my family for that kind of stuff, and being able to talk to
yeah.
you who is a little bit outside of that part of it, and just like, going out and doing the thing, like being on Broadway, like that is just, it's so cool to me. And I hope you understand like how amazing this is for me. And they just thank you so much.
Oh no, of course, I'm happy. I'm happy to talk to you. And the truth is that our families are incredible, and our families are our grounding force. But this business and the things that happen within the business, I tell this to people all the time. The reason why people in our business often feel so lonely, is because I've explained to my family in incredible detail about certain things, and they, unless you've been in the business and unless you've gone through certain things, you just will never understand. And so I would say, yes, be with your family, but also as you go throughout this business, I would definitely encourage you to find, very carefully and with a lot of discernment, people, that are in the business that can really be there for you, and that know, and there's a shorthand, because they understand, right?
Mhm.
Not, but despite the reputation that Hollywood has and this business has, there are some really, really special people. There are a
Mhm.
lot of assholes too, but there are some very special people, are grounded, and that know that this is not the end all be all, and that there's so much more to life than jobs. So yeah, I would definitely say seek that out as you go throughout this journey. But I believe that you also attract what you put out, and you put out so much good energy and positivity and just kindness, and so and humanity. So I don't think you'll have a problem finding good people.
Yeah, I hope not. And now before our timer runs out, I think we need to talk a little bit about K-pop. Just a little bit about this little show that happened that, we were all in love. Um, so first, like, how did you get involved with K-pop? Because Jake was not a part of the original Fate members. It wasn't in, like, technically it wasn't in the Ars Nova production and probably came to be in the workshops, but just how did you first find it? How did you first get involved?
I don't know. I was I was asked by my manager reached out to me one day and was like, "Hey, do you want to do this Zoom table read for this show that's going to Broadway called K-pop?" And because the casting director Tara Rubin, who's incredible,
Mhm.
reached out to my manager, and I was like, "Sure." But at that time, I read for in the table read, I read for Chuni,
Mm.
played by Chinu,
Yeah, yeah.
and Chinu was actually in that Zoom read too. And yeah, and so I read for the part of Chuni. Ashley Park was still she was still reading this part of Lee,
Mm.
and so I was playing her in the Zoom table read, and I didn't really think much about it because sometimes you get approached by people to just be a part of these readings. It's not an
Yeah,
audition; it's just whatever.
yeah.
And then later on, I was in New York for my friend Shanley's premiere of her show Power Raising Canaan, Power Book 3 Raising Canaan on Stars.
Mhm.
And I was there for the premiere, um and they had reached out and they were like, "Hey, is Abraham available for a work session?" Just to come in, and I go in and there's no one else there, and I noticed that it's clearly just for me an hour, and I was like, "Oh God." And I truly just I forgot all the words to Hangulnom. It went out
Yeah.
it just left. It was like air. You just couldn't see it anymore. I sang 언제까지 da 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 da, forgot the words, don't know the song. Na, 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 na.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I literally did that. Everyone was horrified. This was after I did the scenes, and everyone they really liked it, or at least that's what I think. And I had and yeah, and then God, and then I sang, and I completely forgot all the words, and I was horrified. But you just kind of have to find a way to be like charming about it in the room, and I tried, and they were just like, "Okay, we know you can sing, and you just sing anything." And I was like, "Do you want Korean or English?" And they said whichever, and I sang "보고 싶다" by Kim Bum-soo. It's like a song I sing at karaoke sometimes.
Oh.
It's about Yeah, and then I sang it, and then Helen was like, "Oh," and everyone's ears kind of perked up a little bit. And then Helen was like, "Oh, can you just sing like the whoa part in Hangulnom with Han, which is like kind of like this Korean like emotional grit turmoil type thing." And I have that in spades. So I was like, "Sure." And I just went, "Whoa," once. And she was like, "Oh, more than once." So and after that, I got the offer. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
how it came to be. I think it was 5 people in the Ars Nova iteration, but then it changed to 8.
yeah, yeah. I know Ginny was telling me all about the past iteration and how different it was, like, and how he used to do your high notes.
Yeah, Chinu is the only one that can do the high notes.
Hence why he was technically an understudy for Jake,
Yeah.
which is obviously very cool. So, like, did you have a reaction to booking the show? Because sometimes people are like, "Oh my god, I got the job," or "I got this," or "did this," and people are recording. But like, did was that how it was for you, or is it just kind of like, "Oh, cool, I'm a part of like this project now." It was just kind of like, "Oh, okay."
I would I would say it was in between. I've been in this business now for 10 years. And so, I've been fortunate enough to work. And so it wasn't like the first time that I booked my first like TV job after Glee Projects, like that was recorded. And then I was like, ah. But I'm also pretty confident about those moments too. I still get a lot of joy when I book jobs, don't get me wrong. But with K-pop, it was unique because I knew that it was the first Korean story told on Broadway, which was an incredible privilege. And I also, at that point, it was kind of bittersweet because that was when, there was a surge in violence and hate against our community.
Mhm.
And the reason why I wanted to be a part of this show so bad was severalfold, but the two biggest ones were, one, I wanted I wanted a cause for joy and celebration within our community simply just for being ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think that we were attacked for who we were, but I wanted us to just be celebrated for who we were. And I wanted to be a part of that. And I think that's to be a part of something like that is so special. And the other reason, the big reason was because I have a baby niece and nephew.
Mhm.
And I just want them to be able to one day take for granted that they see themselves on
Yeah.
stage, on screen. And there was a point where I was in between the workshop and when we started rehearsals for Broadway in the summer, there was a point where I was kind of like, I was presented with a different opportunity and I was thinking about leaving for that.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
that was Christina Yuna Lee had passed away. She
Oh,
was
yeah.
the
Yes.
young woman who was murdered in her own apartment. Um, reading about her life and the work that she did for some reason really sparked something in me where it was like, oh, I feel like Christina would have actually really, really loved her show.
Mhm.
And and it just kind of reignited this fire that I had initially that I think I was maybe about to lose, and I wanted her legacy and her life to live on, like a spark of her life to live on through
Mhm.
our show. And so, and for the many other people in our community that may have felt, attacked or made to feel invisible or marginalized, I wanted our show to be that. And so, yeah, I was very happy, but I was also like, I knew that even amidst the happiness, that I had a great burden and a great pressure
Mhm.
on me,
Yeah.
particularly to represent our community in the way that it should and needed to be. But also, pressure is a privilege,
Mhm.
and so I'm very privileged in that sense. And so it was heavy, but I'm honored to have been a part of lifting
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, yeah, what you said about, going through all the violence and the hate. I mean, with what stuff happened in this past week, I was actually 30 minutes away from where it happened when I was visiting my grandparents when we, saw the headlines and stuff. And so it was just really crazy because my grandpa's actually performed at one of the dance studios before, and my parents and my grandparents, they used to live there and around that area. And so just hearing all those things and seeing all those things happen, it's just like, okay, this is why we need to keep doing what we're doing so that, things like that don't happen anymore, or just continuing to fight for things that we believe in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those shootings were just,
Yeah.
I mean, they were pretty devastating.
Mhm.
And there's so many questions that I have still that so I don't feel like I can talk about, but I think there's been a lot of people. The one thing that I will say is that there are a lot of people who are like, oh, well, those shooters were Asian. How can you possibly say whatever? And I just really have a very strong response to that, which is that that does not undermine the fact that like Asian people are otherized, that we feel a deep sense of trauma and
Mhm.
fear. I didn't go out for Lunar New Year because I was actually really afraid. I did
Mhm.
not feel comfortable going to an Asian establishment or an event and putting myself out there in that way. I didn't feel comfortable doing that. And so I don't want people that are not Asian to undermine or make smaller this the great trauma that we do carry and the great fear that we carry and the great feeling that we have of being made the other in this country.
Mhm.
Them being Asian shooters does not change the fact all of those other facts. And so I do wish that people could have a bit more empathy and a lot more curiosity actually with regards to what's actually happening instead of coming to their own snap conclusions and asking more questions. But I know that's what I'm going to do. And so what other people do with their life is really none of my business. But I hope that's my hope. And I live off of it, right? So do we all.
Yeah. No, I mean, with
Yeah.
everything happening, I think it opens up the question of like mental health as well. I was talking with my mom and just saying like some of these things happen because people just don't know what to do after if something bad, like something crazy happens, or different situations. Obviously, it's very, like muddy in terms of what we actually know, but just like opening up, like I mean, K-pop in itself just spread so much Asian joy to me and to everyone else, and just like those are the kinds of shows that change lives, that people will see it and be like, oh my god, this is what I've been missing, or it'll fill a heart, like a hole in your heart, or fill something that you didn't have before. And just I think, like, the show like K-pop is really just not just one to go and have fun at, or go and like see because, oh, I love the genre K-pop. It's like, no, it's a different kind of story, and one that really inspires and just kind of turns it on its head and changes it a little bit. And with all the scenes and all the different things, like it really just breaks it open and changes the narrative of what K-pop is, what it can be, and what we want to see it as, in terms of knowing what these people have been through before seeing them go on stage and be perfect, or be, as
Right,
excellent as they are.
right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Ashley. That's all really sweet. Yeah, I think when community Y or Z, I think when there's an severely underrepresented community, I think that there's this desire and need from said community to have a show like K-pop, which is the first of its kind, to be everything for them,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
To represent them in every single way, because we've been starving for proper representation where we're not, you know, we're war stricken, or we're the victims, or we're fetishized, or, and we're kind of written or portrayed through the white gaze.
Hmm.
And I think that, I remember when Fresh Off the Boat came out, everyone was like, oh, well, people from within our community were
Hmm.
like, oh, that's not me. That's not. And it's like, it doesn't matter. And Crazy Rich Asians, it was like, oh, that's not me. That's not me. I still went and watched. Was that my experience, Crazy Rich Asians? Sure, certain parts of it, I guess. But, I did not grow up rich, and quite
Uh,
the opposite. I grew up in like actual like poverty, but supporting stories like that births so many other stories. I genuinely believe that Everything Everywhere All at Once would not be here without Crazy Rich Asians, which would not be here necessarily without Fresh Off the Boat, which would not be here without a Margaret Cho sitcom that had failed and
mhm.
closed. And so thanks for saying that. I really do appreciate it. I think sometimes like joy in and of itself is not. I always said this even before our show like opened, and even before we started previews. I was like, mark my words, I was like, the existence of this many Asian bodies on our stage, that in and of itself is a political statement.
Yeah.
Truly,
Yeah.
that in and of itself is a political statement. And I knew that there would be criticism and all that from outside of our community, but I really want to focus on like within our community and how we can really I'm not saying people can't be critical.
Hmm.
Obviously, I'm such a critical person, and you
Yeah.
have to be with them, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that you can do so while still supporting and understanding the long game. We can't like fly before we crawl. We can't walk before we're crawling. You know what I mean? And I genuinely think that with regards to theater, it's like we have a lot more work to be done. I mean, in every medium, but in theater in particular, I mean, this was my first like real theater experience.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot, but I do think that there's so much work and change that needs to be done within this industry.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And just think, yeah, everything you said, like just it's just I think shows like this are so important. And I've been telling like Patrick and Amy that, K-pop has really done everything that I wanted Broadway to do. And like in these past few years of like putting Asian bodies on stage, and then giving swings the ability to be on an album, or giving them recognition, giving them a final bow, and doing things like that, or just you know sh- like I remember when I first saw you guys all do the little sneak peek where you guys did Superstar, Shigerongbee, and Hagugnom, and that was my first experience of like seeing the show, because I didn't know what it was before, and then seeing those clips of Shigerongbee and everything, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then it made me like keep looking for clips and keep looking for different things. So, and then that's what made me want to go see the show, because I was like, I'm missing so much by not knowing the entirety of the 2 hour show. I only know like 15 minutes of it, or and just like not knowing it yet, but then like going and it just being such an amazing gift and being like, I want to play Sonoma, or I want to play Ivy, or
Oh, I
yeah.
love that. No, first of all, our swings are incredible. And I know that people like, I know I go on and on about the swings, but it's truly because, um, again, this is like my first real theater experience. And this is the first time I've witnessed the swing experience. It is oftentimes thankless. It is oftentimes it's a really hard job. I mean, technically in and of itself, you're covering, I think Tim covered like every male track
Yeah.
and and Patrick covered like so many tracks, all of them. And so on top of it being actually just technically a really hard job, it's emotionally and mentally really hard job because like you said, I'm so glad that they took the final bow with us. But the truth is that like I almost wish that swings could come up and share the bow with us every night. I really do, particularly that final week. And because the truth is, especially during this pandemic, whether or not they are on, we haven't, I know we had a few canceled shows, but the reason why we didn't have more canceled shows is because of our swings. It's because of our understudies. And
Mm,
I really just think that they're remarkable. And
mm,
I think all swings out there, regardless of what show they're on, they deserve way more recognition because it's a really, really hard job to do. And when it's a thankless job, oftentimes, and you're not on stage taking the bow and you're not getting like the lights and the glory and the applause and all that stuff, there's only one reason that keeps you there, and it is because of love
yeah.
of craft, love of story, and and they have nothing to hide behind when it comes to that love. And so I just have the utmost respect and admiration for them. And I just think they're amazing. And I only wish that they could have gotten more recognition because they truly saved our butts time and time again. And so
Mhm.
I just love them.
Yeah, me too. They're amazing. And I'm like, if y'all never ever need another cover or standby in another production, like I'm here. I'm just putting it out there into the universe. Um,
Oh my God.
yeah, just like Artemis cover with Lena or whatever.
Do it. Do it. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, and for you, since so many characters seem to really be infused with the people that were playing with them, like how much of yourself was actually put into Jake? Because I mean, there was stuff with Kate being like Laker girl, or you being in Queens or whatever. Like, how much of yourself was a part of Jake in the terms of
This
creation?
is gonna sound like a really nerdy thing to say. But as an actor, I don't really try to go in and see like what of me I could find in that character because
Mm-hmm.
I think that's often limiting. I try to find like, or what, like, I think my ability to empathize allows me to find um every character in me and vice versa. Does that make sense? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know that sounds like a nerdy, like actory thing to say, but I don't, because I don't think that honestly, like he sounds like me necessarily in the way that I talk in everyday life. I consciously made him sound a bit different, like just vocally in terms of how he talked,
Mhm.
um, and just like the cadence. I think that, um, yeah, I mean, sure, I think certain things you're gonna throw in a little bit like a mannerism here or there, or like a vocal inflection here or there, but I think the ferocity with which he performs is definitely something that is imbued in me as a person. But I think in terms of like the acting stuff, I think we're actually quite different. I
Mhm.
think we're actually very different. I think I'm sometimes less the bridge and more, I think I'm more fiery than Chag is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, it's so cool just seeing, I'm sure Kevin has a lot of his own experience for his character, and everyone else, or
Right.
or
So
for
much.
Young, or just everyone who has gone through that. I'm sure it's like a totally different experience too of like living that and then doing it for theater. I don't know. That's the best way to put it, but just
Very meta.
for you, you know, like, no, I'm not, man. I'm from Queens. Like, like that
Oh
line.
yeah, like that was definitely Jason. Jason's very clever with his writing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he put that in. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like overall like personality and just like his like role within a group, I think we're quite different. But yeah, we're both from Queens, and yeah, my Korean is, I speak Korean, but it's not like Poyoung or Kevin even, because I've lived in America for a vast majority of my life.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think those similarities are quite there, but I think at the root of it, like the heart of him, I
Yeah.
think quite different. But I think I could find any character in me,
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah, I think
Even like,
what makes a really great actor too is just like being able to play anyone. You're not limiting yourself in terms of who you can be and who you can pretend to be, because that's what acting is, so in a way. It's just like you're pretending to be someone else. It doesn't have to be identical to yourself.
no, yeah, I think if you're just going to be yourself, then I think you should just go on a reality show. I think it's and I've already done that, and
Yeah.
but yeah, and I think it also just stretches your humanity. I think beyond as an actor, like, people are already limiting you so much, then why bother limiting yourself? But I think just as a human, I think the more that we can do that, I just think the more our empathy grows, and God knows we need a lot more of that in this world. And so uh yeah, I think that's the challenge for me, is that no matter who I play, I just try to bring humanity and empathy to the table. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you have a favorite number to perform and favorite costume to wear in the show? Because there's a lot of good ones.
Um, there's so many good ones, right? Clint Ramos and Sophia Choi are amazing, and their entire team is incredible. Favorite number to perform is probably America.
Hmm.
It's also the most stressful because I literally am so breathless, but I just love the intensity. And I just remember, even after a certain like review came out, I just remember the way in which I performed that song like changed. It
Mm.
was much more direct, and it was much more response to like, and I do think that song tells a big part of the story of
Mhm.
Fate. Um, and but I also just really, really love the joy of blast off. Like, it's really fun for me. And sometimes you
Yeah.
just think fun. And favorite costume. Oh,
Mm.
I would say for me personally, I would say it's America or Blast Off.
Mhm.
Hundred was fun too, because that was like the all pink moment was like a moment.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, my little like strap thing would always get undone, and so I would always try to find some sort of way to like play with it, or make it a part of the performance. But I think Blast Off was really, really beautiful, and just a level of detail. And I think America was just really cool and probably closest to like my style. So
Yeah, no, yeah, all the costumes are just incredible. And I remember talking to James about like you each got to kind of make it more your own. I know, I think he said you had a lot of like designer stuff, like maybe I think he said Gucci and just, stuff like that where it's just really cool.
Dolce & Gabbana. Yeah, I had Clint and Sophia. It was actually really collaborative with them. Like, even before the show started, I reached out to them before rehearsal started, and
Mm,
I was like, "Look, I think Jake, according to the script, he's kind of like this bridge between like America and Korea, and like between Brad and like Chunyuk and the rest of the group." I was like, I think his style and his hair and everything need to reflect that. I wasn't jumping out of my seat to kill my hair, but I felt like it'd be really appropriate for him to have like
mhm.
really blonde hair. I was going to do contacts too, but I just didn't want to wear
That's
it every
a lot.
show.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wearing
Uh,
contacts right now and I like never wear contacts, so
oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and I just felt like his style needed to reflect that, like this kind of like fusion between like, the Western and Asian sensibilities. And so they just started putting me in a lot of sheer stuff, and things that were see-through and or no shirt at all underneath the blazer. But they killed it, and it felt really collaborative, and I think we got to a really lovely place together. But no, Clint and Sophia are incredible. I mean, incredible,
Yeah. No, I
incredible.
always said I really liked how it outlined each of your uniqueness as well as bringing you together in terms of color and just kind of style. Where in America, everyone has a very distinct, different look, but you all look like a team. But you can still pick
Right.
out each and every person. And most Broadway shows, it's like ensemble, everyone's chorus lines, same costume, same everything, where you really have to look to see the specific person who's doing it and doing the same choreography as everyone else. Where in K-pop, like, I mean, your formations, like everyone was doing something different and everyone was doing something unique, and that is just never seen really. And I love that so much.
Yeah. Because I mean, even if you look at like BTS, right? Like people all have like they all do the same choreography, but there's a different sensibility. Like Jimin is much more like there's a contemporary fluid way in which he moves. That's very, very different from J-Hope, right?
Mhm.
And how they move is very, very different from Taeyong, from V. And so it's like, there's a definite difference in like, and I think you see that in the way that like Josh is much more, he has like this contemporary languid feel to him. James is much more like street, like freestyle, like dancing. I'm much more like, there's like, I think someone said like they're like, I make it sexy or whatever.
Oh,
Okay. Or like powerful or whatever. And Patrick, just everyone moves very differently, but
mm,
hopefully it still looked cohesive, and I think we did. And
yes,
I
yes.
love that our individuality came out
Mhm.
definitely through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, everyone can like find their bias or whatever, or like someone they want to watch the whole show or
Right.
something. I wish I had been able to see it as many times as like Hannah or Leah, but
I can't believe it. They watch it so many times. I'm like, my God, you guys, you spend so much money.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just like go back to those moments because I miss them a lot. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
wish there was
I
a
miss
way
the
to
show a
just
lot too.
watch it again. All of
Well,
it.
I think our final show was recorded
The
for the
archives.
archive.
Yeah.
hmm and I'm sure it exists out there somewhere. But yeah, no, I miss the show a lot too. I mean, even the other day when I posted after the Monterey Park shooting, the video of Hundred,
Mhm.
I honestly wasn't going to because I was like, this is so tone deaf of me to do. But then, like we were talking about before, I remembered why I decided to sign on with the show and stick with the show.
Mhm.
And I felt like we really needed just like a spark of joy. And if I could give that to like even like a few people out there from just this one performance that we did. And when I posted it and I was thinking about why I did it, I really missed the show. It comes in waves. I have moments where I'm just like, I really miss it and I get really sad and I grieve it all over again. But at the
Mhm.
same time, like when I hear all the things that you have to say about the show and like what it did for you, or even when I bump into someone on a street or when I'm at another Broadway show and all these people are
Yeah.
coming up to me and saying all these things, like it's so moving, and it shows me that like even though it's not at Circle in the Square right now, that the life of the show is continuing on through people,
Mhm.
and in this life, like all you have is time and people and
Yeah.
relationships with people, and so that's the lasting thing, and I'm just really honored and humbled by that. So
Mhm.
it's really moving and
Yeah.
kind.
I do have to put it out there that there is a K-pop super fans group chat that is currently like on Instagram where I'm in it, Hannah's in it, Aaliyah, Robert, everybody, and we all just talk about K-pop, or anytime someone's doing something like James's dance classes or Min's workshops, like we're all sending it to each other being like, who's going? Who's doing it?
Oh,
Like we're making sure that we're keeping it going, and there's a K-pop fans like no, not channel, like I don't know how to say it.
Instagram,
An
Instagram
account,
account.
an account. There is
Yeah,
that
I
now
saw
too.
that.
It's like, we're trying to make sure that people know about it, people can see it. And with me, with my podcast, like I'm just trying to make sure everyone can hear about how amazing it is if they did not personally get to see it, because it does still live on the internet with videos and stuff. You can always look back, like you posting Handura or anyone else doing stuff like that. And so it's really
Oh, well, there's gonna be a lot more content too around the album,
okay,
around the recording process.
awesome. Yeah, we're about a month out now. A little more than a little less than a month now.
Yeah, Helen just reached out to me yesterday and said that she's been hearing the album come together, and she said it's almost done. She said it sounds incredible, and I'm waiting with bated breath. And I'm also just, I always get nervous about anything that I do. I'm very self-critical, and so I'm like, oh God, I hope it sounds good. But like Harvey Mason Jr. is like, he's a legend, and he's working on it. So I have very little doubt that it's going to turn out great. So
Yeah,
I'm
no, I'll
excited.
be
But there's
streaming it. I'll be streaming it forever.
But thank you seriously for keeping it alive. That really, you guys are, are why we do it. And also like it gave me so much joy meeting everyone after the show and before the show, and um gave me a lot of life, throughout a very like sometimes exhausting, process. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I know I had like the best experience getting to finally see it, and just nothing else was like it on Broadway. And so I'm just so glad that I was able to see it before, before it closed. Thank you to my dad who helped me,
Thank you,
coordinate.
Dad.
Yeah, thank you, mom and dad. Thank you so much. And so I wanted to ask you, did you have backstage rituals or something you had to do before, or did you like wave to a dresser or have a high five with someone or do something before the show or during the show that you want to share?
No,
No, not at all.
I really don't. And I know some people definitely did.
Yeah.
I didn't. Because I just kind of feel like, and like whatever people need to do, then do it. But what I need and what I want day to day is going to change, and also I accept that my performance is going to change day
Hmm.
to day. I'm
Yeah.
not going to ever do the same thing. Like even if that's my intention to, obviously, because you want to honor the words on the page and you want to honor, what the show is, because you're not in a show by yourself.
Hmm.
Where I always act from where I am, and where I am is different every day. And so like, going with a ritual, there's this idea that like, it's going to be, and I'm
You're
also not very superstitious in the way that like, I don't give away my power that easily to, but yeah, I mean, no, I didn't really have anything. I was just in the dressing room, like cackling with John and Eddie.
really.
Um, and sometimes crying,
Oh,
or sometimes whatever. And but yeah, no, I would just maybe breathe. I guess the closest thing is that like before this my career, before the show started, like I always sat on the stairs, but that was never like a ritualistic thing. It was more of like it's right there, and Julia sitting there, and that's where she sits every single day, and she has a bit of a ritual, and I just
mhm.
like sitting next to Julia.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
no rituals on my part. No.
Yeah, no, I kept hearing, I think Amy talk about either like doing the dances during This Is My Korea, like doing the fate dancing behind this, like behind
Oh
the
yeah.
wings, and like looking at Josh or something like that. And so it's just like
I
so.
would listen. I would go backstage during Pongari sometimes, uh, just to hear Luna sing, because I just think she's stunning, and I just loved hearing the song sung by her. Yeah, no other. I don't think there are any other rituals though. Yeah, no. Yeah, I guess I'm not.
Just keeping it fresh. I mean, I don't think in the few shows that I've done, I don't really think I had a ritual either. It's just like I had like
Yeah,
easy tracks, so just like eat my salad, go out, do something, eat more salad, and then just like hang out. Um
yeah. I'm so bad. I don't do like. I should have stretched way more because my body hurts now. But like, I didn't really stretch. I didn't really do vocal warm ups. I didn't, and that's not to say I don't take care of my voice, but I just think I don't know. I was never, formally trained with
Mm-hmm.
singing. So like, and with acting, I just leave my only preparation is the work, which I had already done, and is to remain open.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's not something that's necessarily, but that being said, hey, do whatever you need to do. There's
To be
there's
ready.
no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong way to do any of this, as long as I think you remain open and you come from a place of empathy. But yeah, but no, not me.
Yeah, and then I have to ask, like, how did you discover your talent for belting so high? Because I think I heard you belting to, was it Julia, someone's dog? I think on Julia's story, like just like belting, and then on your live,
Oh, Whitney Houston, yeah. Mhm.
you're like belting America on yours and Min's live. I was like, what is happening right now? Like, it was amazing.
I don't know. I always just really loved singing when I was little, and also listened to, the greats. Like I listened to a lot of Brian McKnight when I was younger. I listened to a lot of Whitney when I was younger, Mariah, and they all sing very, very high. Funnily enough, I was actually made fun of a lot for my higher voice
Mm,
when I was younger, but up until like college actually. But I was like, that's my voice.
mhm.
I was like, that's my voice. And, there are times where I don't like the tone. I don't really love the tone of my voice. I know I can sing, but I don't necessarily sometimes love the tone of my voice. And there are times that I wish I could have a softer, less grit to it, but it's my voice. And so, and so I'm not going to change it. And it is what it is. And enough people seem to like it. I think more people like it than they don't.
I know I like
So
it. I like it a lot. It's
Oh,
amazing.
thanks, Ashley. But yeah, you just have to say that. But yeah, no, I mean, like, yeah, it is my voice, and I think I've learned to embrace it, in all of its power and grit, and sounds like me.
Yeah. I think it does,
So,
definitely. But
yeah.
when I first saw the New York Times article, I know I was very angry, but the video that you made seemed to just put everything I was feeling into words. And so, like, what made you really want to speak out against the article, and what made you just want to really address it?
Hmm. I truly there was no strategy behind. I'm a very instinctual person. I go with my gut. And it felt like a moment where I was just like saying, take your muddy shoes off
Hmm.
before you come into our home.
Hmm.
And I actually really, again, I'm not one of those people that really care about what people think about me. But when you come after like my home, when you come after the people that I love, and it was like the one, and again, like I'm no stranger to, mixed reviews or negative reviews. I've done enough TV in my career to, get, both really positive reviews and both also like not so great reviews in terms of like the
Yeah.
projects that I'm involved in. I think my issue with that was that I think he came from a very myopic white male gaze.
Hmm.
I think he had an idea of what our show and the Asian experience should be,
Hmm.
and he wouldn't even deign trying to be open to what we had to offer. Um, I also think that, like, as a journalist, as a critic, your actual job, your your job is like written language. And I think that it's sometimes really, and I think it was actually further making us the other
Hmm. Yeah.
in in a landscape where we already feel like that, in a country where we already feel like that. And on top of that, it was like the one review, and again, it wasn't the only like mixed to negative review, but like really no mention of the 18 Broadway debuts, no
Yeah.
mention of this historic feat of Helen Park being like, the first of her kind in the Broadway world. Like no mention, like the one mention is going to be, or the two mentions are going to be like, is a white actor who's Abby Marylise, and he's incredible, but like it's like is him. Like, and I think Zach Pizer too. Like it just all kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then the squint inducing thing was really, it wasn't about those words. It was really about those two words within the context of everything else that really
Yeah.
rubbed me the wrong way. And I felt like it was just really offensive. And I felt like it was actually really problematic. And this critic has no, he doesn't lack history in terms of problematic reviews regarding shows by and for people of color. And he's also one of the gatekeepers of this world. And I think with that comes a lot of responsibility. And I think he was very irresponsible in
Hmm.
that review. And I stick by what I said. And our show is closed. This is not to save our show. This is just for the sake of our community.
Yes.
And yeah, it was just annoying because I also have a problem with people who don't know how to do their jobs properly. Like
Hmm.
incompetence really bothers me. And I just think he
Yes.
was incompetent.
I
Yeah.
know, and especially as me trying to, as like a person who writes a lot about different things, like I would never want to put some performance down or just, try to do that on purpose. You can find something beautiful in everything. And, I wish that he had at least noted Luna's like should be Tony nominated performance as we are just like everyone in this cast that is so incredible instead of just not even drawing attention to it at all because everything that he
Right. Even
everything that he was saying, I was like, what show are you watching? Because I'm seeing something completely different than you, and we're watching the same show."
And it was actually too, and this is not for vanity's sake that I'm saying this, but like even I remember the photo that they used of Luna was during a scene where she was playing Wind Up Doll,
Oh, yeah,
where she was dancing to Wind Up. And it
yeah.
was actually the least flattering photo of her that showed her in such a like disempowered state.
Mhm,
And just everything about it was offensive. And I also do have to say that like I think the one point that I also wanted to make with that was that like I have never been the type of person to back down from a fight that I believe is worth fighting. I'm just not that person, and I'm not the one. And so like I don't give a shit if you're Jesse Green of the New York Times. I don't really give a shit if you are, I don't care who you are. If you're, that stage was us being on that stage, quite frankly, was, and I'm not saying that our show was perfect. Nothing is, Funny Girl isn't.
mhm,
But, it's, um, when you are, that stage was made possible and built by the sacrifices of my mother and her mother.
mhm,
And watch Pachinko, like the survival and persistence of generations, and Boa and Psy and BTS and Blackpink, all these people, both the failures and successes. And so to me, it wasn't like I was just protecting our show. God, how limiting.
yeah,
I was protecting and honoring the sacrifices of all those that came before us as well. And also, quite frankly, all the Ashley Haas of the world
mhm,
who want to and would dare to come into a landscape that tells them that this doesn't belong to you, but are like, okay, no, but I will find a stage and I will be
mhm,
excellent and I will be unapologetically Asian, right? And so that's what I was doing it for. And I know like that sounds a bit self-important, but I believe that, more Asian people do need to speak up within our community. I think we were socialized to be a certain type of way, but
mhm,
I'm just not gonna put my head down
yeah,
when someone's literally coming into my home with shoes like covered in mud. Like
mm,
I'm just not that person. So I wish him well, and I hope he does better. And I also think that I think white people need to stop telling Asian people who they should be.
mhm,
I
yeah,
mean, simple as that.
yeah,
Simple as that. And I think, when you have another review out for like another musical, that's a jukebox musical. And I don't want to name this just because I don't want to put the show down. I think it was very clever and I think it was well done. But like the review was almost very similar to what our show did, but that show was a jukebox musical. And
mhm,
that one got a positive review. But that one has songs that they're familiar with in the language that he speaks with people that look like him.
mhm,
And so that's all I'll say,
yeah,
and I think that's
yeah.
compelling.
Yeah, it's about why wasn't there an Asian American reviewer or Asian reviewer doing for all these different news outlets? I mean, for like, and also with people getting, going to the show or doing even that little sneak peek at the very beginning, I was like, I was seeing creators being invited. I was like, where are the Asian creators being invited as well? Like, I know I would have loved to go. Obviously couldn't have gone, but I would have loved to at least been invited to just go and be able to capture something to promote the show. And for like, that is something else that I think could really, really be done. Like next time K-pop happens, just being able to have that access and not just having the people on the stage and behind the scenes do it, but the people watching it and reviewing it,
Right.
helping promote it also need to be Asian or Asian American because I think we know how important it is and how different it is and how it needs to be treated like such, not in the terms of otherizing it, but in terms of taking it as something special and close to us and something that can't be treated like almost famous or a beautiful noise or any other show that is currently on Broadway that doesn't represent us specifically, that it needs
Well,
to
I
be
think it's
taken with careful hands.
yeah, yeah, you're so right, Ashley. And I think it's actually it's a nuanced situation, right? It's quite complex and there's like different layers to it. Because on the one hand, I agree. No, not on one hand, on both hands, I agree. But think that I think that there were a lot of people within the Asian community, and I'm going to call out my community because we need to be called out once in a while. I think there were
Mhm.
a lot of people within our community that were like, oh, this doesn't, like we were talking about before, like, oh, this doesn't represent me, or like, oh, this is so music called K-pop that's so cringe,
Mhm.
they maybe want something more highbrow or something. And I think a lot of people, Asian people in our community, kind of shut the doors to K-pop.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Um, I'm not, illiterate, and so I can read things, and so there's been a lot out there and a lot made about stuff like that. I think also a lot of K-pop fans, both Asian and not Asian, were very much like they know their faves right now, but
Yeah.
they don't understand that Miss A, that FX, that You Kiss, that Spica actually opened a lot of doors for their faves.
Yeah.
And because they didn't know them, we're just kind of like, oh, what is this? This is inauthentic. Da, 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 da. But it
Mm.
was actually like, no, these are the idols that came before and walked so that yours could run.
Yes.
I also think that it's a failure on marketing's part. And I'm not going to go into that any further than I need to, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. And I think they failed big time. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that there should have been more Asian creators. I think that there need to be more Asian journalists,
Mhm.
and I think that there need to be more Asian journalists out there, which is why I'm so glad. Like, I know that you have other aspirations, but even like this, like, I'm glad that you're doing this because not only does it keep the show alive, but also it's like you are an Asian person.
Mhm.
There are certain things that I don't need to explain to you that you just innately understand.
Mhm.
And there's a view that you have that can see the existence of K-pop in its full authenticity, right? And
Mhm.
so it's a lot of different layers. It's yes, it's yeah, these people should have been invited and these Asian people should have been invited. And I agree with that. And that was a failure on a complete failure to on one party, but it's also like our community also needs to be held accountable insofar as like we need to support the projects and especially those ones that are the firsts
Yes.
so that those can birth other things that further reflect your experience and your view
Mhm.
of
Yes.
the Asian experience.
Yes, definitely. No, and even what you said about our own community not being able to see yourself. I'm not Korean, I'm Taiwanese. Like, I'm not Korean at all. Like, but I can still see myself in a show that I don't understand the language, but it doesn't matter. I still love the music and I still love you can tell. You can figure out what they're saying based on context clues where whether it be, me talking to to Ruby or Junie or whatever, like you can tell, you can understand.
And things were
But
literally repeated in English like right after like
yeah.
80% of it, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like that was just certain people like critics not really paying attention uh and
Mhm.
because they already knew what they already knew before they walked in. I think certain people judged it before they walked in, which is fine. But it's the reason why I don't really try to watch trailers of movies. And it's definitely the reason why I do not read reviews before I go into a movie, because if I do, then what it's going to do is it's immediately going to color my lenses through which I see the film or the show or the play or the musical. And
Mhm.
it's going to already color my opinion before I even start to pick up the paintbrush. And
Yeah,
so, you know,
yeah.
but that's
That's
the
so
age we live
perfectly
in.
true. Yeah, so true. I mean, even with Broadway, a lot of times reviews bring people to Broadway, but it should be the opposite. You should really just go and see it for yourself before you judge. Because I think when you judge first, then it becomes something that, you have a different perspective on it now. Like, yes, I had read
Right.
the K-pop reviews, but I already had such a positive outlook on the show, and I knew what it was already before anyone had to tell me what it was, or anyone had to explain to me what was wrong, and like whatever they want to say. But just going in, when I went into that theater the first time, and this is my career started, like I literally started bawling my eyes out because I was just so happy, and I was so happy to be in the theater, being able to see a show that I'd waited months to see, and seeing you and everyone else. I was just, like, overwhelmed with so much joy. I was just bawling my eyes out, and I turned to my mom, and I was like, "I'm so happy right now." I was
Oh, but honestly, like that's the thing is that like, yeah, I have opinions about what happened, and I think they're informed and educated opinions that I feel very strongly about. But like, I can't even dwell on those things for too long. Like, why am I going to give power to like fucking Jesse Green and his shitty, incompetent review when I literally see like Asian people in our audiences, like of all ages, like feeling so much joy? Or when you tell me about your experience with your mom watching the show, like I'm just like that's the life of the show. Like that's the heartbeat of the show, like that's the legacy of the show, right? And so like that makes me so happy. And like I can't even talk too much about those other things because it's like, okay, well, the show wasn't for you in the first place, and it could have been, but it wasn't for you. Like the show is for you.
Yeah.
The show is for mom. The show is for my family. The show is for the communities out there and, in within New York and beyond that, wanted to see themselves like and, imagine themselves as like an Asian alphabet. And
Mhm.
they didn't have to do that. They could just see themselves, and like that's just like the best. I love that. Like that makes me so happy.
Yeah,
It
like,
really does. Like,
there
it
is
fills me
no
with so much.
stretch. Oh, sorry, what were you saying? Oh.
No, it just fills me with so much joy. Like it makes me so happy and hopeful and just really honored that I got to be a part of that, like like I remember seeing like little boys and like at the show and they would be like, so like, oh my God, you were so cool. And I was like, oh my God, so are you.
Yeah.
And that's not like a thing that I'm saying like just to be like sweet or nice at stage door. Like I genuinely mean that. Like I want them to see themselves like as me on stage or as them on stage, right? And so like that's just so cool.
Yeah.
Like that's so cool to do what I do.
Yeah. No, I'm like, it's no stretch if I wanna play Sonoma. Like, it's not like
Right.
I
Like
have to
it's no
pretend
stretch.
that I fit anywhere, because I think in a lot of ways, being a Broadway fan, I've had to do that. Like,
Oh
having to
my
fit
God,
myself into
Ashley.
specific things, or, these shows on my wall, like every show except for like Be More Chill, that one, obviously Stephanie Shu, I'm like, that's my girl right there. But just with every other
You're off and on.
no, but with all these different shows, I've had to fit myself into a place where it doesn't always fit, or I don't always see myself, or,
Of
whether it be
course.
Beauty and the Beast or like Little Mermaid or something, and just trying to like let people know, hey, like I'm not gonna just be the first Asian this or first Asian that. Like I'm a good performer too. Like I can just be
Right.
the character, or I've sung Journey to the Past like a million times. I can be Anastasia, and it doesn't have to be crazy or weird. It's just it can just be in that. And I think K-pop is helping do that in terms of just allowing Asian people to just be like, we're just people. We're just being people moving through life like everyone else. We just have a little bit of a different perspective on things because of our shared experience and shared things that we believe or have seen in the world that has, made us feel small, but we don't have to feel that way if we're
I
just
mean,
looking around us and seeing all this incredible stuff happening.
right. And even like, with TV and film, it's like, anything that like is prior to like 1990, like I like sometimes like we'll just be like my friends, my Asian friends and I that are actors, will just be like, oh well, that's not gonna go to us. Because it's like there's this weird perception that we weren't really here. We've been here. We've been here since like the late 1890s,
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. We've been here. The railroads are because of us. um, they are, we've been here,
Hmm.
and but yeah, there's this weird invisibilization, which I know is not a word, but like this marginalization and this like made to feel invisible thing that I feel like our community is constantly battling within this country. And I just refuse it all. I just refuse it all. And so I think the best way to do that is to unapologetically and authentically and respectfully always, you know,
Hmm.
to be yourself in all of your Asianness. And to also understand that, like, part of I think the pressure of K-pop was that like I think I personally always, whenever I'm on a set, a TV set, whether I'm always doing K-pop, whatever it is, I always put a pressure on myself to be great. And I know that's not the healthiest thing to do, but the reason why I feel that is because I know that there aren't tons of opportunities. So when I get that opportunity, I wanted to create further opportunities. And the
Yes.
only way I'm going to do that is by being great. Right.
Mm.
And so I just think we need to strive to be as great as we possibly can, but also so authentically ourselves, because it will show people that, oh my gosh, like we have such a rich lineage and such a
Mhm.
rich cultures, right?
Yeah.
And it further enriches, um, this boiling pot of stories within America, and I think we're really special.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and we're here. We're always going to be here, and
and we're
all the
fucking here, and we've always been here, and we
yeah.
will continue to be here.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course. I mean, why not? Why not just cast us now as everything that could possibly be done? Um,
Right.
yeah, and I do think like I wanted to ask you just how are you feeling like the week leading up to closing? Because I remember one of my friends texted me the picture that said closing December 11th, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" Like I could not believe it because um, I was waiting for my NYU, like, either acceptance or rejection, and after that, I was like, "Okay, I wanna go see K-pop," like, once that
Right.
happens, but it was gonna close before that even happened, so it's like, "What am I gonna do now?" And thankfully, I was able to make it out, but that week was just really hard. I know I was making my videos and making so much like, posting so much content about the show just so people could go, and then me trying to find a way to get there. And it was a very bittersweet day, but I know like of closing, but I know it was filled with a lot of love and joy as well, at least for me and everyone in the audience. But how did it feel to you to be performing in what was like a mix between a K-pop concert and a Broadway show? And just filled with so much joy because people were getting up on their feet and dancing with everyone and just having so much fun. Like, how did that feel for you?
Right. Um, I think it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do professionally and personally, that final week of shows. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
Um, I think initially, the first half of the week, we were fighting to keep the show alive. And so I was in full on like strategic fighting survival mode.
Yeah.
Um, but also like at the core of it is just like this like heartbreak, because this was something that I had feared for like a little while now, because of just like how sales were going certain weeks, and during the weekdays in particular, because the weekends would always be like really near capacity or sold out. But during a matinee, it's not going to do particularly well, for a show like ours, right? Where we have like strobe lights and,
Mhm.
and all this stuff. And so, yeah, it was interesting. So I think the first half of the week I was there. The second half of the week, it was just, I was really sad. I
Mhm.
was so sad. Um, I think I was angry.
Mhm.
I wanted to leave everything out on that stage, whether it was a speech that I gave on stage or whether it was through performance. I remember, whenever we did Hundura, and there was this part where James and I, we were facing each other and we're dancing.
Mhm.
And normally like he's cracking up and I'm like laughing or smiling or whatever. But that final week, it was like this like look of determination of like, let's just fucking give it to these fuckers.
Uh-huh.
Like truly, not referring to the audience, but I'm referring to like
Yeah, yeah.
every critic, everyone who was just like, oh, you don't belong, like we're going to show them why. And it was just this like fire. And so, but I also experienced so much joy because, I think you never really know what you have until it's gone. And I think that's such an unfortunate nature to us as human beings. But I really felt the embrace of the audience, especially in that final week. Those extended applauses right before we introduce ourselves after Meant to Be
Mhm.
truly killed me every time. And actually is like, it's still like when I talk about it, it's like a lot. Um, but the love, you feel that love and you feel that embrace. And it's there's just, there's very few things in life quite like it. And so for all of like the sadness, but that being said, it's like before like this is my career. Actually, before like those final few shows, before every song, I would go up and I'd be like shaking or like sobbing or
Mhm.
it was really, really hard. It felt actually quite cruel, but like that's the business, like that's
Yeah.
our business. There's so much sacrifice emotionally and mentally that goes into what we do as performers and as storytellers. And, that's part of it, and you can't just take the good, you have to kind of take the joy and also the heartbreak of it, but also would you feel the immense sheer joy if you didn't have those moments as well?
Mhm.
Would I have felt the magnitude of, the audience's love and embrace during after Meant to Be if it weren't for those moments? So I take both. And so, and those things also make me stronger. And actually, like some people, it might make some people jaded, but it reminds me furthermore of like why and how I am human.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think James actually might have mentioned that moment as well when I was talking to him about you and him just like looking at each other and just having that shared understanding of just like
Yeah.
let's go, like let's do this, let's be excellent
Yeah.
so that we can show everyone like we're not finished yet, we're not supposed, this isn't
Right.
supposed to be the end, and this isn't what it's supposed to be. I mean, for her, like it's so funny how things work out because me waiting since I don't remember how when I waited for 4 hours like for the last show, and so I got my ticket a half hour with this new friend I made in line, and we were just like both so excited because it was my second time, his first time seeing it. And then like getting inside, I sat down in my seat. We were all next to each other because I think like a group of four had canceled or whatever. And then all of a sudden, David Henry Huang comes and sits in front of me. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And so obviously I introduced myself because I've gotten very good at that now because, podcasting, being Broadway underscore corner, whatever that means. I introduced myself, said I met him years ago during Soft Power when it was in LA. And I'd met his daughter before and like we follow each other on Instagram and just like all these things. And he was like, "Oh, thank you." And I was like, "Oh my God, like he's sitting in front of me," like, things like that.
Yeah.
It just shows, like, okay, I was meant to be in here. I was meant to be in the building when it happened, and you and Marina coming up
Yeah.
to the line before when we were just waiting, it meant so
Oh,
much, and just, like, everything in that day just happened to work out perfectly, and I think
um,
there's nothing else I could have asked for a better final show for K-pop. I know I bought like, I was like hanging out. My friend Steve bought merch, and we were all just like so happy, and being able to like relish in that joy was really nice.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for being there. Yeah, I think it was a pretty perfect final show. I think it was better than perfect. I was really happy with that show. I think we left everything out there on that stage. So I'm
Mhm.
really proud of us. Because it was hard, but we did it.
Yeah, and do you have like what is your advice to young performers, people of color who are trying to find their place in this community? Because I know I'm definitely one of those people.
I would say, if you, I would say love this craft and need this craft more than rejection, more than the pain. I think there's this misconception that this business is like glamorous, but really it's like 1% glamour and 99% just like heartbreak.
Yeah.
Um, I think if you don't need this and you can imagine yourself doing anything else and being happy, I would say do the other thing. Um, I would say be excellent. I would say be excellent. You know, as people of color and this as people that are typically not as well represented, you have to be, sadly, it shouldn't be the case, but like sadly, you have to be 2, 3 times better
Hmm.
than some other counterparts.
Yes.
And I would also just say too, like, um, while you are at a place of like, I am just beginning and I don't have everything figured out, and I'm always in a constant place of discovery. I'm always in a constant place of learning and growing. There's also a certain place where you have to be, which is like you knowing who you are. Because truly, LA, this business is not the place to figure out who you are.
Mm.
It's not. And if you do, you will sink. Unless by the grace of God, something happens, like, and there's some divine intervention. But truly, if this business is not the place to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
You're always learning and growing, but you have to have a firm grasp and a strong foundation upon which you stand. Otherwise, you will be washed away and washed up. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I would just say those things. I would say really, really love it. Love it more than your parents' um, acceptance of you. Love it more than the countless rejections you will get before your final one yes. Um, with love comes honor, honoring your craft, really honoring and honing what you do and being excellent and striving to be excellent. And yeah, and really, and also just remember to like live life. I always say, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, if I ever feel like the stress and the heartbreak outweigh the joy, I will leave.
Hmm.
I will just walk away. I don't need this job. And also that's the thing too. I think pursuing this job, like if you like, I would equate it to this. Like, would you love someone? Would you pursue someone who just constantly was like, oh no, I don't need you. I don't really want to hang out with you. Like, if that was a constant thing, would you still pursue that person?
Like, of course not.
Of course not. That's
Yeah.
this business. When
Yeah.
I die, which hopefully won't be for a long time,
The same.
um, I will get a blurb on Deadline and on Playbill that says, "Oh, Abraham of the Boys, Clickbait, K-pop, da 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 da, whatever, passed away for da da." And by the way, and after that, the moment after that, the business will go on. I will
Hmm.
be but a blur to this business, right?
Yeah.
And it constantly serves rejections. And so when I look at it as like a prospective lover, I'm like, oh, I would never pursue a person like that. Why the hell am I pursuing this business? And the moment that I stopped doing that was the moment that I started booking more consistently. The moment I stopped needing this business. I don't need this
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say those things. That's a lot, but I feel like that's actually really good bits of advice.
Hmm. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's perfect advice. I mean, for me, just starting out and doing college auditions, which are freaking scary because, like, you're
They're
trying to,
so scary.
yeah, it's just having to go through that and then knowing that you're different than everyone else also auditioning and that you're gonna stand out. You
But the
have to,
thing that makes you different, but listen to that. You have to stand out, but like you just feel so different. Did you hear yourself repeat what you just said, right? The
yes.
very thing that makes you different is the very thing that makes you stand out.
Yeah.
But then that in and of itself is not enough. You also then have to have the tools to bring out the story that is inherently and so what makes you special to execute that story. And
Hmm.
then that is not what also makes you special, but also what makes you excellent, right? They're
Hmm.
not mutually exclusive. They have to kind of go hand in hand.
Hmm.
But yeah, the thing that makes you different is the very thing that makes you special. And it took me forever to get that. And trust me, even if I tell you this, Ashley, you might, in all likelihood, probably not, it might not click to you. But there is going to be a day one day, whether you're at school or whether after an audition or during an acting class or whether you're on set or maybe on something completely unrelated to work, when you're talking with your friends, where that finally clicks and it registers and you feel it in your body. But trust me, the very thing that makes me special, that makes me different, are the things that make me special. And I cannot be more thankful, because I'm not, some basic whatever. And the very things that also make you different are also the very things that make you afraid to tell your story, but they're also the very things that sometimes the world just needs to hear.
Yeah.
Right? So just remember that what makes you different is what an Asian girl with all those playbills in your back. Well, I mean, truly, theater was not a part of my world really very much at all. But these small things that you think are quirky and what make you weird are the things that make you special. So just remember that going forward, and you'll be fine. You'll be
Yeah,
more than
thank
fine.
you. Thank you, Abraham. And I mean, I know for me, I've been trying to ask those questions. If they ask like, do you have any questions for us? Being like, yeah, what is like the stance on diversity at this school? Like, how am I gonna feel supported in a place that I'm gonna spend 4 years at and having to dedicate my life to it and being in a place where I'm not gonna look like everyone else, but that's okay. I mean, I feel like I've been doing that on Instagram already and just like understanding that there aren't even as many content creators of color or of Asian descent or whatever. It's like I need to be just myself, because I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm just being me and just doing what I
Look,
do all the
I'll
time.
I'll say this. It is never easy being the first. It
Mhm.
is actually contrary to what people think, being like such a huge honor. It is really fucking hard. It's really hard. But the thing is though, is that without those people, like K-pop creating history, like I'm less so interested in history and more interested in legacy, but like K-pop creating history was really fucking hard. But that being said, it's like it needed to happen, right? And so even if there isn't a space for you there, sometimes we have to forge it and sometimes we just have to create it, right? And it
Mhm.
is really hard. I'm not going to tell you that it's not. It's hard. It's heartbreaking. It is hard. You feel alienated. You feel all the things that you already have felt growing up in this country. So what's new? It's
Yeah.
just a different setting. And as long as you remember that you come from a strong lineage of people,
Mhm.
and that you have survived far worse, and that you have the power to create what it is that you need for yourself and also for the community that you represent, you're golden. It's
Mhm.
going to be hard, but you've experienced hardship.
Yeah. Yeah. So everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. I know I've had like the best experience ever with
Mm.
Abraham here. And just thank you to everyone listening to this conversation who, I hope this invokes more empathy in your life and it just promotes change, because that's all we're really trying to do here, is make a better future for us so that we no longer have to fight so hard. And just thank you, Abraham, for being here. Make sure everyone follow him on Instagram and TikTok, whatever you want, YouTube, anything. Just look up his name, it'll show up. And just keep your eyes out for the album coming out very soon in
Yes,
a month,
February 24th.
and for all that content that'll come with all of that. And so just thank you so much, Abraham, for being here. Thank you for everyone who will be listening. And just, I hope everyone here has the most amazing day ever. So, yeah.
Everybody, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. Make sure you're following me on Instagram at Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw and at Broadway_Corner for new updates on episodes. And please follow Abraham at The Real Abraham on all platforms.